All right, hey traders, TG Watkins here. Let's see if we got everything up and running with all of you. So as you guys might be able to see, I got a little bit of a new background back here. I was able to work on it. So should be seeing if that kind of easy on the eyes a little bit. All right, so we're going to be getting into the market. As far as today goes, probably not a whole lot of action with the overall market and indices because, well, it's FOMC today. And we had a wild day yesterday with the CPI, which came in cooler than expected, and it has been on a downward trend from its peak. But remember, we are still awfully high. I mean, we're still 7%. So one thing I've been talking about for a while is that we might be, the whole thing about inflation is that yes, we might have reached peak inflation, and yes, it's coming down, but what if it still kind of hangs around? And what if we still have sticky inflation? And they're talking about normal inflation for us is 2, maybe 3%, but what if this thing sticks around 5, 5.5, 6%, something that idea? And we're gonna have to just wait and see if that's gonna happen, and what the Fed's gonna have to do about that over the course of time. Now, with the interest rates also coming down, we saw that Jerome Powell last speech, I think it was November 31st, that he was saying, hey, the December FOMC meeting, we're most likely going to start slowing the pace of rate hikes, starting at about 50 basis points, which we should be seeing today. That's all baked in the cake. That's everything that we should be expecting. But we need to see if there's still enough juice, enough gas in the market. So let me come over here. I was kind of tinkering a few things earlier. And though the market does look strong and we've been seeing a lot of internals that are strong and things are working up, it just seems like maybe the market's having a hard time still pushing past this area. We've been seeing quite a few conflicting things. So let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions or anything that you guys are particularly looking at, and I'll keep showing you kind of what I'm looking at and where we go from there. You can see that we've had this big trend line here. We also have the daily 200 that we've been running into. Now, it's one of those things where something works until it doesn't work, and I'm kind of wondering if we are at that point to where this trend line has been working, and now the daily 200 has been working as resistance. And what if that works until it doesn't? And what if we are in that mode in that time where it doesn't work anymore? So my concern is that we need to be aware that this might actually be building some strength, okay? Because the market has not fallen apart yet. We've seen each other time kind of peaked, and then rolled over. This has actually been spending a fair amount of time in through here, what looks to be building strength. Now, I don't know if we're going to necessarily keep just going up from here, or if there's going to be more. What's necessary is to kind of pull back a little bit or continue flagging a little bit more chop, a little bit more consolidation to kind of prove all this kind of stuff. So that's kind of one thing I'm looking at. One way to look at this, and I mentioned this to the Moxie subscribers. Let me get this back. Let's see if it comes up under recent. Nope. Yeah, so let me get that. Because what I want to show you guys is this situation. Oh, I see what's going on. I had my thing on the wrong there. So what I'm looking at is if we look at the breadth and the internals, we have seen where if you look at the number of stocks in the S&P that are over their 50-day SMA, and this is what you can see is the chart of it, the graph, that we're up at around 0.85. And if you look back historically, anytime we kind of get up into this area, then the market does tend to pull back. So I'm looking at this and saying, in the near term, the internals kind of say that we are probably a little overbought, a little excessive, and we could use a little bit of a refresher. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I don't know. Sam and I were talking maybe down to 0.6, maybe down to 0.5. I don't know what the number should be, but it seems difficult. It's kind of like a put-call ratio to get kind of long up in here when everything else has already been long. The other thing that we can look at, and this would actually be good for the market. Do I need to reload? Let's see. No sound. Okay, yeah, hang on. Let's. My other area over here was not working. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show you guys was the 200-day, how many stocks are over the 200 SMA. There we go. Okay, hopefully that'll work for you guys. Over in the Moxie room, don't worry. You guys have already heard everything I already spoke about, so there wasn't anything new there. Where I was getting off over here was the breadth indicator here, where we can talk about this is the number of stocks in the S&P that are over their 200-day SMA. And the thing to note here is, look, let me put my cursor here because this was the August high. And what you'll notice is that the number of stocks that were over their 200-day SMA, is at about a 0.5, whatever just 0.5. But this was the August high. But the S&P price was higher than where we are now. So now we're seeing that there are more stocks participating. There are more stocks over their 200-day SMA compared to where the SPY price is. So let me show you this. If we go back over here, here's the August high compared to where we are now. And what you'll see is on that breadth indicator, the number of stocks over the 200-day SMA is actually the other way. Back here, it was lower, and currently it's higher. So even though price of the index is lower than it was in August, internally, more stocks are higher and over their 200-day SMA than the S&P is right now. And so I look at this and say, we might be getting a little bit of a tug of war here, a little push-pull, that the market might be a little overbought temporarily because, so many names are over their 50-day SMA. But as far as overall longer-term bullish strength that might be building, we could actually be stronger than we were in August because more names are over a longer-term moving average like the daily 200. Yeah, Mirza, thanks for calling me out on that with a Slack message about the audio. So I'm kind of looking at that and saying, I'm cautiously optimistic on this that we might be actually seeing some strength coming into the market because of what I've been seeing underneath the hood. Now, I know that there is a lot of discussion and a lot of debate about inflation and then recession. Now, on one hand, we're saying maybe the market doesn't care too much about inflation. Like, it's coming down, it's still high, but it's coming down. And the market now knows that we've reached, say, peak quantitative tightening because we are no longer going to do 75 basis point rate hikes. We're going to do 50. We might do a few 50s. We don't know. And then we'll go to 25. We might do a few 25s. And then we're on the way to zero and pausing. And, the market likes this idea, likes that monetary policy is essentially getting easier because it's not getting harder. It's not getting more restrictive. It's getting less restrictive. And we'll just have to see how the market ends up with that. Now, the other side of it is, okay, what about recession? And what is the market going to do with recession coming up? Well, that's where we don't know, and I don't know, but what I would put out there so that you guys can kind of think about it is think about the narrative. What if the market, leads the economy by 6 months or so? And so what if Jerome Powell and what if the Fed actually does manage to engineer a soft landing? So we've able to tamp down inflation a bit. We were able to slow the economy down a bit, and then we kind of made things easier, and then everything was able to pick back up. And so there's your soft landing, slowed stuff down, and then we pick back up. But I think the idea behind that would be, well, a soft landing is actually not fixing the problem. It's just kind of calming things down for a little bit and letting it fester, and then maybe it comes back. And so the idea is that perhaps we are just kicking the can down the road. So for as much as people are saying, oh my gosh, this market can't go higher, we have to go significantly lower because of recession and all this other stuff, that may not happen right now. It might happen later. We might get a huge bear market later. Like it might. All that stuff might happen. But what if it doesn't happen right now? What if it happens later? And I think that people who are kind of, going a little too hard about that kind of stuff might need to be a little bit flexible just in case the market doesn't go down and doesn't really implode. I think it's a good way to have kind of a 360-degree view on the market, keep your head on a swivel, and just be prepared for any kind of outcome so that when it happens, you may not be too surprised or too stubborn when something changes like that. So trust me, I was looking at things. This was looking a whole lot like 2008 as far as the charts go. Again, I was looking at that trend line, and I was looking at the daily 200 as resistance. I was looking at all these things, and I was looking at the market probably heading down to 300 or 3,000 SPX. I was looking for that stuff. Maybe it's going to happen, but I'm kind of seeing that underneath the surface and underneath the hood that there might actually be some changes to where things are starting to get a little bit more bullish. And I just wonder how hard are the bears going to be able to press? And so it may not happen right now that the bears are going to really tear this thing down at this point. Maybe later, we'll have to see. But I'm looking at this and saying there might be some strength coming into the market. So we need to be careful about that. All right, so that's for the SPY. What do I think about the UVXY? Is it bottoming? And then let me come over to, let's get a different view on this. So in through here, the UVXY is a perpetually declining product. First off, let's remember that. And as much as I am seeing some, say, signals here on the hourly chart, the UVXY, if it is in a downtrend, like if we're in a bull market and there's not a whole lot of fear out there, basically you'll get little bumps and then they'll kind of come down, and then you get a little bump and then it'll come back down, then you get a little bump and it'll come back down, and that's kind of how it'll work. We won't, what'll happen in a bear market, or when we do actually get some serious corrections, is we will get moves up like this. We'll get actual moves on the daily chart. We will see the hourly chart get over the hourly 50 and actually trend in a certain direction. But what I'm thinking is, if this doesn't actually set up on a bullish trend for the UVXY, then there's no fear, there's no hedging out there, and the market actually starts to go bullish. So at this point, I think we do need to be careful, and we need to say, unless we really see something set up, we need to just be aware that bumps in the UVXY are not much. In fact, they might be like buy the dip opportunities in the SPY. Because just because there's a bump in the UVXY doesn't mean it's actually a trend change to where we need to be bearish on the market. So we need to kind of be aware of that too. The other thing I'm noting is look how minimal the volume is on the UVXY. This is another thing I've been having to look at, is that right in this area over the last 2 weeks basically, right when the UVXY was getting to a spot where it looked like it was wanting to reverse, right where the Moxie indicator was starting to go positive and cross over zero and all that stuff, and like where it looked like the UVXY was starting to base and all that. All these things that looked like the UVXY should start building was at the same point where the SPY was starting to run into that upper trend line and run into that daily 200 and all these other things, all this resistance. And we've been seeing the put call ratio start to climb, which means we should be, people are starting to load up on puts. We've been seeing the VIX start to climb. So why is it that when some of these other things that look like it should be the time and opportunity for the SPY to go down and the UVXY to go up, why is no one buying it? Why is there no volume coming into this thing? And I just have to kind of look at that and be like, maybe there's something here that we need to pay attention to. Or it's almost like a lack of confirmation that is giving me a little bit of a pause to say, maybe people out there who know more than I do, who have more information, hedge funds and firms and whatever, maybe they know something I don't, or they are going a certain direction and they don't need to be hedging with the UVXY. So this is another reason why I'm saying we need to be cautious on the bullish side, that it might actually be happening. There might be some bullishness out there. So I'm looking at that. So Venus, no, I would be careful. I was trying to trade the UVXY in through here. It wasn't working. And so you just abandon the idea. I don't see any setup. Despite the potential trampoline move here on the hourly chart, there is zero bullishness on the 15-minute time frame. And so I think we need to be aware of that. I don't see anything yet. And so unless there's a big surprise that comes out of left field and nobody's hedging for it, it seems as though there's not a lot of people here looking at risk or UVXY to hedge. So I'm not looking at UVXY bullish right now. Let's see, hood for a short this week. Well, I had a buddy of mine ask me about Carvana short, and I would hesitate. Carvana, I think, has already been beat up. Let's see, there we go. And I think Hood is kind of in the same situation. These names are not really going down anymore. They've already gone down. So Austin, I think that trying to short something like Carvana, even though the moves can be big on the downside, if you look at the charts, there's really not much more room for it to go, or at least it kind of has done its downside. Like this thing has already been marked down 90% kind of thing. So I'm actually looking at this and saying, hey, Hood is actually making a higher low compared to the market. So that's something to be aware of. And the fact that this has mostly been going sideways is another thing that tells me that this probably isn't just going to fall apart. So I would look at this and say, yeah, I'm not so sure that Hood is a good short. In fact, this could also be part of what I'm saying about, these things might actually end up, they might be putting in a bottom. They might actually be trying. You can kind of see that there is some positive divergence here on the hourly chart, and this could even be a trampoline move on the daily chart. I can't really confirm anything yet. It's not holding yet, but I'd be a bit wary about trying to short these things. I don't think that they are necessarily just going to roll over unless something surprising with the market happens. So I'm just not sure we're seeing that. All right, see Orlando. Technical analysis consensus that we'll have a Christmas rally and then make a bottom the first quarter of 2023. I'm sure everybody has their own read on technical analysis. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out too, is of course we need to figure out timing. So, if we're talking Christmas rally, Santa Claus rally, is it going to happen right here? And so we're going to get a bit of a rally? It could happen. Or do we pull back first and then get a rally? I don't know. I'm looking at this and saying, well, the hourly chart is not quite where I want it. We have price. So if we look, let me pull up a different view for us. What I want to see, because if we look at this, right here compared to right here, the issue that I have is you can see here price was trying to go up across a downtrending moving average. We're kind of looking at the same thing here. Price is trying to go up across a downtrending moving average. And the Moxie indicator is lagging. It's still below 0. So I look at this and say, well, what I really want is I want to see price pull back into an uptrending moving average. And I want the Moxie indicator above 0. And so I look at this and I say, well, really, I'd like to see price come into and bounce off of an uptrending 50 moving average with the Moxie indicator above 0. So right now I'm kind of, between a rock and a hard place here and saying, I don't really want to, first of all, we have FOMC later today. So, I'm not going to do anything until then. But if you look at this, I'd say, I really kind of want to see a little bit more confirmation on the hourly chart before I start going long on this. Again, FOMC can totally change that. Maybe they spark another short covering rally. It's hard to say. But ideally, I would like to see some sort of pullback or flag in order to help confirm some of this. But yeah, we might get a Christmas rally, and then we might bottom again. So it's hard to say. Like we're really going sideways. That's the hardest part, is because we're going sideways. All right. And then what was the other thing I was looking at? SOXX. This was another thing I was kind of wanting to look at. Is same thing. The SOXX is holding up pretty well. I mean, look at this. These are other clues and signs that I'm looking at. It is not going down, and I think that we need to be aware of that this is actually holding up pretty darn well, and so any kind of pullback could end up being viable, even if it's a more significant pullback to the daily 50 and then a move up like that. Because this is doing pretty well. It's spending a lot of time going up, or at least holding up and not going down, and I think we need to look at that as potential strength. So that's why I'm just trying to figure out, okay, where's the exact moment to get in, and it's a little challenging to exactly figure that out, especially with the CPI reaction that we had yesterday, and then we have FOMC today. I'm also just going to be putting it out there. It would be very interesting if, let me bring you back to the SPY, but if this is with the FOMC, if this is a whole buy the rumor, sell the news. So this whole move might be buy the rumor of the Fed slowing interest rates and inflation coming down, because we had a CPI read back here on October 13th, and that was the low, and then the market started moving up. So the market might have been like, rumor is we're going to be able to start easing monetary policy. And so, FOMC coming out today could be the sell the news, like, okay, we got the news. Now the Fed's pivoting, so let's sell it. Then we set up in a better position, and then maybe we actually end up going up later. I don't know. It's just one of those things I'm kind of looking at. We'll have to be prepared to see if it goes that direction and what we can do about that. All right, so in phase. Is it ever coming back down to earth? No, I don't think so. In fact, I was trying to go long on this. It looks like I would still be profitable if that was the case. The pullbacks and the dips were pretty brutal last week, and it chased me out of a few trades. But no, I would say in phase is looking pretty good. I don't see like this thing is really going to. I just don't see a reason why this thing is gonna roll over and die. In fact, if we look at TAN, and let me show you on the higher time frames. Not that one. Not this one. If we look at the higher time frames, TAN also has been holding up pretty well. This is why I've been trying to play some of the solar names, and I need to try and get back into them at a certain point. But this is something that else that I'm looking at as far as potential strength. Look at what the market has done, and look at what TAN has done. It's mostly gone sideways. I think this is kind of what we're calling relative strength when you think about it. The other thing I'm noticing is look here at price at the monthly 10. It looks like it's going to start trying to hold the monthly 10. And if we look here, we've had, let me draw better. We've had, oh, geez, come on, level. There we go, kind of level. And now the Moxie indicator's coming up like that. So here's a double bottom with positive Moxie divergence. And now look at this. This looks pretty good. We've got the 8 over the 21. We've got price over the 30, and we have all of that over the 50. And the 200 is still in an upward trend on the weekly chart. So this is looking okay. This is looking pretty good. And if we look at TAN, Nova was another one that I'm looking at. I'll have to figure out a way to get back into this thing eventually, but it's been doing pretty well. If you notice, we've got this overall, level, doesn't want to go lower than that. We've got positive divergence, and basically I'm trying to find an entry in through here. And you can see again, we are over the monthly 10. So a lot of these things are starting to look like they're recovering. They look like they want to start building bases and start moving back up, which is part of why I'm looking at this narrative that we might actually start going bullish on some of this stuff. Now again, I was in Nova, got chased out of it, but it did end up holding the daily 50 and now it's back up. So all I'm trying to do is find out a little bit of an entry here on the hourly chart because I don't want to really go in up here at the third ATR. I also don't want to go in when price is up across a downtrending hourly 50. So any kind of pullback, I think we should start looking at stuff like this with solar and all that. So no, I would not be looking to short in phase. And I think I saw SPWR. So SunPower looks very similar, very similar. So you can see here that there was a bit of a gap here. So Rob, if you look at this, here's the first move up over a downtrending daily 50. That might be the second move. Okay, so Rob, that's kind of what I talk about when I talk about that first move, second move. First move, second move. And let's see if that kind of holds, and then we can go up like that. I'd like to see a little bit more confirmation on that hourly chart. This is a little bit challenging to work with because again, you have price moving up over a downtrending hourly 50 and the Moxie indicator below 0. So technically that's an inverse trampoline move. I'd like to give it a little bit more time to see if there's any robustness to the setup of this later. But solar in general, I am looking at it and it's holding up. I think that is the biggest thing we need to be aware of is that it's holding up. And if you look here, it looks like it's trying to hold the monthly 10. It's been basically staying over the monthly 10 for 5 months. And then you can see here, it is trying again to stay over the 8, the 21, the 30, the 50. And all of this has stayed above the weekly 200. And we're starting to see some divergence here, and the weekly Moxie indicator looks like it's about ready to fire. So it's about ready to cross over. So yeah, I'm seeing some strength to generally kind of come back into this stuff. Tesla. Now, top value, I had to kind of talk about this yesterday. Tesla might be on its own planet. A lot of times that was a good thing, but right now that seems like it's a bad thing. You have to keep in mind that for whatever the stock market is doing, Tesla might be different because, well, it's Elon Musk. And he's got Twitter, he's got Tesla, he's got the Boring Company, he's got SpaceX. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff going on out there, which is going to be very polarizing, good or bad. Remember that back in the day, Tesla was the most shorted stock ever. Back when Tesla was $300 and before any of its stock splits, if you guys remember that. Most shorted stock. People hated him or hated Tesla, didn't want him to, everyone thought, oh, this electric car thing wasn't going to work out. And so he proved them wrong. And then everybody jumped on board, and now Tesla is like worth how many thousands of dollars per share before pre-split. So understand, if you're going to trade Tesla, you're probably trading something that is more based on narrative and what's going on with the guy and the company than it is actual based on technicalities and fundamentals and stuff like that. So just be aware of that. And if we kind of come down lower, yeah, it's still going down. I mean, I was looking for areas where this thing was going to bounce. I was kind of matching it up with Amazon because Amazon looks like it's actually catching some strength, but Tesla's not. So I was seeing some similarities, but Tesla just keeps being weak. Again, I think we need to say that that might be a little bit more about alternative information as opposed to just the stock. So keep that in mind. So there's Tesla. Apple, Don, I have a hard read on Apple. I was telling the Moxie subscribers too. I was like, man, I don't know what to make of Apple. On one side, we have Apple running into the underside of a downtrending monthly 10. That should be resistance until it's not. We also have Apple putting in a level here, which makes sense because there's a whole lot of price action back there. So there's a support level. Then on the weekly chart, we have price basically flagging into the underside of a downtrending weekly 50, and the Moxie indicator is below zero. That should be that should be bearish. That should be negative. It looks like it wants to get pushed down by that. But then we come over here, and it's really now just chop. It's like we can't quite get price to stay over the daily 50. The Moxie indicator is not terrible, but it's also not totally positive, so that's mostly neutral. And again, we do have that downtrending daily 200. The hourly, just mixed. I mean, we're above 50, we're below 50, the 50 is going down, price is up. I mean, I can't really make heads or tails of this. The only thing I can see near term is we had a double bottom with positive divergence, and now we're trying to kind of follow the 15-minute up. I don't have a read on Apple. It is basically just going sideways. We got resistance overhead and moving averages, but also price won't go down. We're in a previous support area of price, and so it's going sideways. I mean, it's literally just going sideways. What do we do with this? You know, we have maybe a pennant going on like that. So you can see here. Let's see if it breaks out. Let me actually draw on there. Where's my tool? Nope, am I not going to get it? Okay, let's do this. Draw there. So we'll put in, let's see if that kind of works right there. And then something like that. So I don't know, we've got a bit of a pennant. Let's see if it can break up or down out of that. But I got no read. And of course, the market's going to go wherever Apple's going to go and vice versa. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that and keep an eye on the market too. Yeah, right. Tesla's a solar company too. Yeah. So all just so many things with Tesla that may or may not be working in its favor. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind, guys, and we'll see what we can do there. Other than that, I've been looking for TLT and UUP to kind of make not a reversal, but I want to see it just kind of move back in a different direction, a little bit of a refresh, right? So TLT has really made quite a big move. Let's see if we come over here and we look at the weekly time frame. I'm looking at TLT pretty much at the arch of the foot on a weekly time frame. So what I would generally like to see is actually price coming back down like this, find some support, and then go back up there. And if it can, that would actually be bullish for the market. So if TLT can do a pullback into support and then go higher, that's bullish for the market. But what that might mean is we might need to make a dip in the market first. So the market might also need to make a dip like this before going up. These are just other things to keep looking at and watching, because if this happens, then we can actually get a little bit of guidance for the market. So that's another something that I'm watching. Let's see, Netflix. So JLL, let's see, Netflix. Not something I've been paying too much attention to. If we come over here, I'm trying to look at the higher time frames. The only thing I can kind of say initially is that this was a massive oversold rally. So you can see here, price got way outside of that third ATR on the monthly time frame, and there was a huge gap between price and the monthly 10. It found a low, and it's just kind of been climbing up ever since. You can see there's even a bit of an elf shoe on the weekly chart. Leg, heel, arch of the foot, ball of the foot, there's your elf toe. It seems like it's had a pretty good run, and typically, price running up into the underside of a downtrending moving average like that, I would imagine at some point this thing might want to pull back and refresh. It's a little challenging to want to get long up here. If you're already in, then hey, ride this thing until the wheels fall off. But it does seem like maybe even there's some resistance up here. So maybe just be aware that there is a previous price level right there, and you're coming up on it. So once it kind of gets there, it could be a magnet and resistance at the same time. So just be aware that there's that resistance, and if you've been trading this so far up there, just be aware that that might end up being a place where it runs into some resistance and could stifle it for a bit. But so far so good. It has been a kind of a wavy ride, so if you're able to do that, that's awesome. And it looks like it's been following the hourly 200 pretty well. So yeah, it's doing okay, but just realize you might be kind of, it's had a really good long run. Well, it'll be interesting to see how much further it can go before it finally kind of needs to take a break and all that kind of stuff. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to let you go. Moxie group, I'm going to see you in about half an hour anyway, so I'll answer more of your questions there. And as always, if you guys have any questions about me or whatever, come over to profitpilot.com.